The crowd fell silent one moment. Carlos Alcaraz was stretching for what seemed like a routine forehand return. The next, he was on the ground, writhing in pain, clutching his left ankle as thousands of fans held their breath. The world number one had collapsed to the court in Tokyo. And suddenly, everything changed. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not now, not to him, you see. When you're at the top of the tennis world, when you're carrying the hopes of millions on your shoulders, when you're the golden boy who replaced Rafael Nadal as Spain's tennis king, moments like these don't just hurt your body. They shake your very soul. Picture this. It's September 2025 at the Japan Open. Carlos is facing Argentina's Sebastian Baez in what should have been a straightforward first-round match. The 22-year-old Spaniard has been dominating the tour all season. 4 Grand Slams already under his belt, a career that most players can only dream of. But in the 5th game of the first set, fate had other plans. As he lunged for that forehand, something went wrong. Terribly wrong. His body twisted awkwardly. His ankle rolled beneath him. And then silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any roar from the crowd ever could. Carlos hit the court hard, his face contorting in agony. For those watching, time seemed frozen. Here was their champion, their unstoppable force, reduced to a vulnerable young man lying on the ground. Fear written across his features. The medical team rushed onto the court. Carlos glanced anxiously toward his coaching box, where his team watched in horror. You could see it in his eyes, that split second of pure terror. Not just about the pain, but about what this could mean for his career, his dreams, his future. To understand why this moment hit so hard, we need to go back to where it all began. Carlos Alcaraz Garfio was born on May 5, 2003, in El Palma, a small town in southeastern Spain. His father, Carlos Alcaraz Gonzalez, wasn't a professional athlete, but he understood the value of hard work. His mother, Virginia Garfia, provided the emotional foundation that would carry Carlos through the inevitable storms of professional sport. From the age of 4, little Carlos was holding a tennis racket. But this wasn't a story of pushy parents living vicariously through their child. This was pure passion. Raw talent meeting relentless determination. Real Club de Tennis Murcia became his second home. While other kids his age were playing video games or hanging out at the mall, Carlos was on the courts, hitting thousands of balls, perfecting his craft stroke by stroke. His coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, saw something special, not just in his technique, but in his heart. He has the soul of a warrior, Ferrero would later say. Those words would prove prophetic. By 15, Carlos was already making waves in junior tournaments. But success at that age is a double-edged sword. The pressure builds early. The expectations mount. And for a teenager from a small Spanish town, the weight of those expectations can be crushing. His breakthrough came in 2021 at just 18 years old. The Miami Open. Facing seasoned professionals who had been playing at the highest level longer than he'd been alive. Carlos didn't just compete, he conquered. He became the youngest men's Masters 1000 champion in history. But with that victory came a new kind of pressure. Suddenly, everyone was watching. Everyone was expecting. The Spanish media began calling him the next Nadal for a teenager. Those are heavy words to carry. The rise was meteoric. The 2022 U.S. Open changed everything. Carlos didn't just win his first Grand Slam, he did it by becoming the youngest world number 1 in ATP history. The boy from El Palmar was now the king of tennis. But crowns, as they say, can be heavy. Behind the trophies and the accolades, Carlos was still learning how to handle the spotlight. The constant travel, the media obligations, the weight of representing not just himself, but his country, his family. His dreams, his relationship with his team became crucial. Ferrero wasn't just a coach, he was a mentor, a father figure. Someone who understood the loneliness that comes with being at the top. Because when you're number one, everyone wants to beat you. Every match becomes a battle. Every tournament becomes a war. Then came 2023 and 2024. More Grand Slams. Wimbledon, the French Open. Each victory sweeter than the last, but each one also adding more pressure. The tennis world had found their new superstar, and they weren't going to let him rest. But here's what most people don't see behind the highlights and the celebration. Photos. The toll it takes on a young body, the injuries that pile up the treatments. The constant fear that one wrong step, one awkward fall, could end everything you've worked for. Carlos had dealt with injuries before. In 2023, abdominal problems forced him to withdraw from Wimbledon. The devastation was visible. Here was a player who lived to compete, suddenly watching from the sidelines as others played for the championship he desperately wanted to defend. That experience taught him something crucial in tennis. Your body is both your greatest asset and your most vulnerable weakness. Fast forward to that moment in Tokyo, as Carlos lay on the court. Clutching his ankle, those memories came flooding back. The fear wasn't just about this match or this tournament. It was about everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed, potentially slipping away in an instant. The crowd watched as the medical team examined his ankle. Tape was applied. Tests were conducted. And then, something remarkable happened. Carlos Alcaraz, the warrior that Juan Carlos Ferrero had recognized years earlier, decided to fight. He got back to his feet. The crowd erupted. But the real battle was just beginning. Playing through injury is one of the most dangerous games in professional sports. Your mind tells you to push through, but your body screams for mercy. Every step becomes calculated. Every movement carries risk. And in tennis, where split-second reactions can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Playing hurt is like walking a tightrope without a net. But Carlos didn't just continue playing, he dominated. Lil BC, Lil BR, Sebastian Baez. A talented player in his own right could only watch as the injured world number one elevated his game to another level. After the match, Carlos faced the media. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. What would he say? How would he explain what happened? The statement that followed revealed something deeper about the man behind the champion. "I was scared, not going to lie," he admitted. Those 6 words carried the weight of vulnerability that we rarely see from elite athletes. Here was the world's best tennis player, admitting to fear. Admitting to being human. "I was worried about the injury," he continued. It's not easy to recover quickly for the next match. The honesty was refreshing. In a world where athletes are often expected to project invincibility, Carlos chose transparency. He chose to show that champions aren't fearless, they're brave enough to face their fears. But the statement revealed something else. The way Carlos spoke about his team, the visible frustration when they wanted him to continue playing despite the injury, showed the complex dynamics at play. On one side, a team invested in his success. On the other, a young man trying to balance ambition with self-preservation. The images from that match tell their own story. Carlos, lying on the court, looking up at his coaching box with a mixture of pain and confusion. His team torn between pushing their champion and protecting him. The crowd, silent with concern for a player they'd come to adore. What happened next in the tournament was almost secondary to the bigger questions his injury raised. How much is too much? When does the pursuit of greatness become self-destructive? For a 22-year-old who has already achieved more than most players manage in their entire careers. These aren't just philosophical questions, they're daily realities. The tennis world watched Carlos's recovery with bated breath. Every practice session was analyzed. Every movement was scrutinized, because everyone understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about one tournament or one season. This was about the future of tennis itself. Carlos represents something special in modern tennis. He's not just skilled, he's exciting. He brings an energy and passion that draws new fans to the sport. His matches aren't just contests, they're spectacles. And when a player like that gets hurt, everyone feels it. The support that poured in from around the world after his injury showed just how much Carlos means to the tennis community. Fellow players, fans, even rivals expressed their concern and wished him well. Because in a sport that can often feel individualistic and cutthroat, Carlos had managed to become universally beloved. But perhaps the most telling part of his statement was what he didn't say. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame his team for pushing him. He didn't dramatize the injury for sympathy. Instead, he took responsibility, showed vulnerability, and demonstrated the maturity that has made him not just a great player, but a great ambassador for the sport. The injury in Tokyo wasn't just about Carlos Alcaraz, the tennis player. It was about Carlos Alcaraz, the young man. A 22-year-old carrying enormous expectations, dealing with physical pain, and trying to navigate the complex pressures of being the world's best at something while still figuring out who he is as a person. His decision to continue playing that day, to fight through the pain and win the match, wasn't just about tennis. It was about proving something to himself, that he could overcome adversity, that he could lead by example, that he could be the champion the world needed him to be, even when everything inside him was telling him to quit. For Carlos, the injury was another chapter in an already remarkable story. But unlike the chapters filled with trophies and celebrations, this one was about resilience. About facing your deepest fears in the most public way possible and choosing to persevere as Carlos continues his recovery and prepares for future tournaments. That moment in Tokyo serves as a reminder of his humanity. Behind all the accolades and achievements is a young man who faces the same fears and uncertainties as anyone else. The difference is that he faces them on tennis courts in front of thousands of fans. With millions more watching on television, his statement after the injury wasn't just an update on his physical condition, it was a window into the mind of a champion. Vulnerable, honest, determined, and ultimately unbroken. The tennis world will continue to watch Carlos Alcaraz with fascination and hope, because players like him don't come along often. Players who can make you believe in magic. Players who can turn a simple tennis match into something transcendent. Players who can collapse to the court in pain and somehow emerge stronger than before. That's the Carlos Alcaraz story. Not just about winning and losing, but about falling and rising. About fear and courage. About a young man from a small Spanish town who became the king of tennis and learned that even kings must sometimes kneel before they can stand tall. Again, the injury in Tokyo was scary. Carlos himself admitted that. But what happened next, the recovery, the victory, the honest statement that was inspiring? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is admit you're scared and keep fighting. Anyway, ***, what did you think about Carlos's handling of this scary injury situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Luminoir for more exclusive insights into the lives of your favorite sports stars. We dive deep into the stories that matter, bringing you closer to the human side of athletic greatness.